It's Halloweenfest.
Halloweenfest 2024. Welcome to the Oh Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
Happy Halloween.
It's first of all, it's not Halloween. This is the final episode of this year's Halloweenfest.
Went fast.
As the intro said, Halloweenfest. Yeah, I like Mike's whole kind of showing the shirt that he's wearing, which is it says "Let's watch horror movies." And it reminds me of "Let's all go to the lobby."
That's exactly what it is.
Right. It's all those like the
Take on
popcorn and the
that.
soda and all that
Yeah.
stuff. All right, let's tell the folks how we're rounding out this year's Halloweenfest, which was a concept episode, an idea that we came up with. Very original, of course. I'm sure no one's done this before.
Oh.
But the
We
Oh Brother
originally-
Podcast hasn't done it before.
Every year at Halloween, we always review a random Halloween movie. Last year, we did H2O. So this year, we decided let's cover them all. Let's focus
Yeah,
on
s-
the women.
yeah. So we didn't really talk in depth as to how we were going to run through this, other than to say, we kind of agreed chronologically. We just kind of talk through the franchise
Mhm.
and spotlight the women of the franchise. And there are many, and there's too many to name on the podcast. We're not going to literally talk about
Right.
every woman that's ever had a role in Halloween, but we were off mic and you were talking about something that I'm now going to take a detour and actually have you talk about this, because you
Okay.
said, wait, I want to say something up front. There's a negative connotation with the Scream Queen moniker. And so tell the audience a little bit about where that came from.
Well, I was reading an article about your favorite franchise, Terrifier.
My new second favorite to
Yeah,
Halloween.
second. The young actress who plays Sienna,
Yeah, Laura Laverna, right?
she was
We're
asked.
gonna I like how you just say, yeah, that's your favorite new, and I'm like, what's her name again? But it's Lauren Lavera, and
She was asked in an interview,
with Collider.
do you find that negative? And she was like, no, I'm proud of that. And that's how we look at this. I mean, Michael Myers and Donald Pleasance are a staple through most of the series. Michael, except for one, is the person. But in each film, there's a significant woman actor that really carries a good chunk of the story. So we want to focus and highlight those women.
Well, they are the protagonists of the
Mhm.
franchise. I mean, 1978, the original Halloween. This is, the kind of duh moment where, we talk about Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, right? She's
Right.
19 years old when she gets this role. And of course, when John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, his collaborator, and I think they were together at the time, or was he with Adrienne Barbeau already? I can't remember. But anyways, they were writing partners, collaborators. And, Janet Leigh, Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, who gets Psycho, right? And she's also, now she goes down and as part of the, the franchise lore, right? 'Cause
Mhm.
it's an H2O, and we did an episode on H2O. But, Jamie Lee brings that clout just because her mother is,
And her father is Tony Curtis.
yeah, but I'm talking within this genre.
Oh, okay. Talking
Right.
within the women.
Yeah, so
Trent,
Deborah Hill, they
yes.
knew when they were casting, like, that's gonna bring with it a little bit of, weight, a little gravitas, if you will.
Mhm.
The way she's portrayed in the film, she's often said that she found that kind of ironic because that's not really how she was in real life.
Right.
She was probably more like Annie or Linda than
Maybe.
she was Laurie.
And we see a different, as the franchise gets kind of late into the movies, the last iterations, we see a totally different Jamie Lee. And in fact, if you watch The Fog, you'll see a different Jamie Lee Curtis, which is another John Carpenter film.
She wasn't the only Halloween alum in that film, right? Starred alongside Tom Atkins.
Correct.
Who was in the Season of the Witch, which we'll talk about Halloween 3 as we
Right.
go through this. So Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously, like she's the
Right.
headliner. And then you've got Nancy at the time, Nancy Loomis, which I always found that
Right.
funny. Dr. Loomis, Nancy
Right,
Loomis.
and that's a stage name, which I thought it was maybe, her single name, and then she changed it to a married name, but it was a stage name.
Yeah, Nancy Keys, right?
Yes, that's
Um,
her real name.
PJ Souls as Linda, Kyle Richards as Lindsay, the little girl, who again comes back in the franchise years later. Nancy Stevens, who played Nurse Marion, who of
Mhm.
course she gets resurrected throughout the franchise. Sandy Johnson. I want to give Sandy Johnson a shout out because she plays very briefly Judith Myers
Right,
in the original Halloween, that
right,
famous scene where Michael goes up and he's dressed in the clown costume and confronts her while she's brushing her hair in
right.
the
"What are you
bedroom.
doing in here?"
Exactly. And then I guess an honorable mention, we've already sort of talked about Deborah Hill a little bit, but we did talk about Deborah Hill quite a bit on the
In an
previous.
older
We
episode.
did a franchise episode and then we did H2O, but in the franchise episode, we talked about her quite a bit at that time. But we mentioned she's writer, producer. In fact, she was responsible primarily for the dialogue for the women in this film. That sequence where Michael's going up the stairs, young Michael, right? And he's about to murder his sister Judith, and
Mhm.
he sees the clown mask on the
Right,
ground, and this arm comes in, and you see the clown costume and the arm. That's Deborah Hill's arm going in to get
right,
to put on the clown mask. This is what kicks off the franchise, and I guess you'd say Nancy, PJ, and
right,
Jamie
and
Lee are
and
they're the major.
PJ Souls was there's a song written about her. She was kinda like the it girl. She did Stripes with Bill Murray. Other films like that were big, like she was in Carrie.
Mhm.
So she
Right.
became really the most popular one after the first film.
So, what's your takeaway from now? Did you go back and watch the films? You couldn't have gone
I
back and watched 13 films.
No, I watched Halloween 3. That was
Mhm.
the one I chose to focus on and all the extras.
I watched Halloween 3 as well. I watched
Funny.
Halloween 3 as
And
well,
we
and I
did
watched.
not agree
No,
to that.
no, we didn't talk about that up front. I watched chunks of 1 through 5. So, we'll leave it there, and then we carry into Halloween 2,
Which
right?
is a direct sequel.
1981. So, this comes out October 30th, 1981.
Mhm.
Right? So when this episode of the Oh Brother podcast drops, it's going to be a nice little anniversary of Halloween 2.
Which you can see behind me.
Yeah, you've got all the posters
I've
going.
got the Halloween 2 and Zombie Halloween 2 over here.
Halloween 2 has a little in common, I would say, with Terrifier, because you remember we were talking about it
Mhm.
as slasher horror, and they really upped the ante in Halloween
Right.
2, right?
Much
You go
more
back.
graphic.
Much more graphic, and I had brought up, Pamela Susan Shoop or Pamela Shoop, who plays one of
The
the
nurse.
nurses, right, in the famous scene where she gets her face burned off in the
Right,
sauna, which was ice cold actually,
right.
for those that don't,
And then there was the
of course, it
scene.
wasn't a boiling hot
Yeah,
tub.
she really scalded her face. I mean,
Yeah,
she's
she
method
was
all the
all in.
way.
She was all in, but,
There's also the scene where the EMT that kinda wants to hit on Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie,
Mhm,
he
yeah,
slips in this big puddle of blood,
yes.
and that was a pretty big sequence at that time.
It was, yeah, it was, but they definitely upped it to make it more of this splatter horror type of film.
Mhm.
Side note, also we talked about this Halloween Fest when we did our episode on Manhunter, and we talked about some of that production being in the De Laurentiis studios. And I didn't realize, have you gone and looked at Dino De Laurentiis's resume?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is long. It is
Producing wise,
executive producer on Serpico, which I didn't remember that. Halloween 3, he was
yep,
the EP on that. Stephen King's The
right,
Dead Zone and
right.
Manhunter. And you mentioned the blood slip moment in Halloween 2, which Gloria Gifford was one of the actresses I wanted to mention who plays Nurse Alves, who is she's the head nurse
She's directing traffic with everyone.
in the hospital, right?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Have you ever been in a hospital that's that pitch black?
No.
Like during it's just kind of
And that
bizarre, but
empty, there'd have
that
to be a
empty, right.
storm or something.
Where, like, the staff are going off and having sex in, like, the
Right.
rec room, and it's a lot of wait till we get to Halloween 3 and we talk about, Tom Atkins. But
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Gloria Gifford was, played a hooker in the film 48 Hours, with
Which
Nick
I was
Nolte and Eddie
gonna
Murphy.
say, Jamie Lee Curtis launches her career after Halloween 2.
Yeah.
So she gets away from horror after leaving, it was a mutual break with John Carpenter, but
You know what I love about Halloween 2 is the character Doctor Mixter. Did they call him that because he was a drunk? Like, they were like, "Oh, he's back from the golf club, and
right,
he's out been drinking," right? And you know what? I didn't realize the actor that plays Doctor Mixter played a character named Mickey on several seasons of The King of Queens in that, but
right,
I didn't make the connection until now.
right.
And I just wrote down some of the maybe lesser talked about female cast in some of these films, like Tawny Moyer, who played Nurse Jill. There's a great scene where Nurse Jill comes out and Laurie's trying to get away in the hospital. She realizes that Michael is there. Jill confronts her in the hallway, and then sure enough, Michael appears behind the nurse and he stabs her in the back with, a scalpel or something and lifts her off the ground and her clogs just fall off her
Right,
feet. And so
right.
great scene. Anna Alicia, I wanted to mention too, who plays another she was like you would call them candy stripers back in the day. I don't think she was a
Yes.
full-fledged nurse, right? But her character's name was Janet. That was some funny interplay there with her on the walkie-talkie. The acting was so cheesy.
Yeah. Over
It
the
was it
top.
was good. That's how it was supposed to be played.
Right.
It's that, that I'm saying that as a credit to
And
how they
Jamie
played them.
Lee became kind of a minor character because she gets sedated and she's kinda we kind of visit with her every once in a while, but the movie's taking place outside of her.
She's sleeping half the movie in a hospital bed.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, anyway, so anything stood out to you in Halloween 2 with some of these performances or the stars of this
Just that,
sequel?
things changed after that. And
Yeah,
the original Halloween right now is banked about 47,000,000. Halloween 2 did pretty good as well with 25,000,000. So these are
yeah,
certified hits,
right.
and then they pivot. All
Mhm.
of a sudden, we go to Halloween 3
Right,
with
right.
the guy who played the original Shape, which he wasn't called Michael Myers, he was called The Shape, was played by,
Nick
Tommy
Castle. No, no, no,
oh,
no.
I thought
You're
Tommy did it. He's credited.
no, 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 you're thinking of,
Tommy Lee Wallace.
Tommy Lee Wallace. He was like the art director, I think he was credited as in the original,
Okay.
and is actually responsible for I think for the mask, because
Which is
he was the art design guy
right,
on the films.
which is really a Spock
Yeah,
no,
but you're
not
bringing him up,
Spock.
Captain
Right,
Kirk.
because I
It
read
would have been
that
a
in the
whole different
credits.
franchise if it was the Spock this with the pointy ears. I don't know how that would have
If you go
worked.
to IMDb, check that because I think they
What?
have him listed as the Shape.
No.
Of not
No,
maybe I'm wrong.
it's no.
Sometimes they mix them up when they're sequels
The
and
Shape in what?
in
Which
the
one?
original.
No. No, it's Nick Castle, and then Tony Moran plays him when he reveals himself for a brief minute at the end
Right, right.
of the
So there's
film,
actually 2 Shapes in the first one, 2 Myers,
technically.
technically.
Again, Tony Moran played like it was like a 2-second shot,
Yeah, let's
but no,
go to
Tommy Lee Wallace directs Season of the Witch.
correct, I know
Is why
that.
he's relevant here. And as you said, they pivot now. Season of the Witch, we also mentioned this a reference to one of the other episodes we did on Halloweenfest this year, Shaun of the Dead. Another tip of the hat here to George A. Romero,
Mhm.
because he had a film, Season of the Witch. It was actually released as like Housewives or something. I forget what the title ended up being that it came out. I think it was they were trying to make it like a softcore porn film, and Romero wasn't really on
Down
board with
for it.
that. But
But
anyways,
this
that's where the
should have
Season of the
never been
Witch
called
comes from.
Halloween 3.
Yeah, but if you listen to Tommy Lee Wallace talk about it,
Right.
it wasn't really that in some ways it was their intent. They were looking to do
Something different.
something different in like an anthology, right?
Right, and each year they thought, "Okay, we'll do a different
Yeah,
story each year." They
which I
didn't
thought that would be
realize.
cool.
Yeah, I think they didn't realize how invested people were with Laurie Strode and Michael Myers.
Right,
A
right.
and I think, obviously they flip it back
What are the
in
numbers
Halloween
on
4.
what are the numbers on Season of the Witch?
You're gonna be surprised. What do you think? Do
I
you know?
no idea. No, I didn't look it up.
14,000,000. That's a good
And I
take for
wanna say
that
the budget
movie.
was only like 2,000,000 or something.
It was low. It
It was
made
low,
money.
yeah, yeah.
You know, if you watch the extras, you'll hear Tom Atkins say, "Well, it was a flop."
Yeah, but
And
let's
that
talk about let's get back to the focus of the episode, which is
correct.
Stacey Nelkin, who
Mhm.
plays, Ellie in this film. And it's funny because Nancy, Keys, I guess we would say,
She's called Keys in this one.
is back as
His
Atkins' ex-wife.
right, bitter ex-wife, she's listed as.
Oh, is it bitter ex-wife?
Yeah,
And I just love the juxtaposition of her role in this versus her role as Annie
correct.
in the original. And I thought she did a great job. She really played the part well.
And a
But
lot of it was voice acting because we heard her on the phone a lot.
that's true. That's true. You know, trying like she was always on his ass, and
Yeah.
this guy was a philandering
Oh, man.
scumbag right from the beginning.
Like,
Um,
he needs
let's not get on and make it a Tom Atkins
no,
episode,
no.
okay? But
But he
it's
did the
just
same thing in The Fog with Jamie Lee. It was
oh,
like,
yeah.
"Come
Oh,
on, man."
I think Tom might, have been a man about town, although his wife is in the film.
That's right.
His wife plays, like Marge Gunt or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
She's like a salesman for the Silver Shamrock
Right,
Company or
right.
whatever, a saleswoman. But her name is Garn Stevens. That was his wife at the time. Hey everyone, if you love movies, hit that subscribe button and join us for more amazing episodes on the Oh Brother podcast.
Don't miss out.
And don't forget to leave a comment and share with your friends. And Stacey Nelkin, I didn't realize did you know that she was originally going to be up for the role in Blade Runner that ended up going to Daryl Hannah?
No,
Yeah,
I didn't.
yeah. She's very young at the time. But Season of the Witch, it's one of those films that it grows on me more and more every time I watch it.
Yeah, the villain, the older guy, I didn't write his name down because 'cause we're focusing on the women, but, he was creepy. He
Mhm.
he fit that bill, and, I mean, it was a little unrealistic to think every kid was gonna have one of these masks on,
Well,
but
the fact that they, confiscated a stone from Stonehenge and
right,
it's a very bizarre.
and there's a lot of robots in it. People had asked him, and I saw this in the extras, was she a robot the whole time,
Mm,
or did she become one?
right, right. Well, speaking of one, as was Dick Warlock, who, of course, in Halloween 2 played Michael Myers.
Right,
But it's
right.
weird to see him in this without, just Dick Warlock, 'cause
Yes.
when you see shots of him walking and it's like, okay, that's Michael Myers from Halloween 2, because he had this very different walk in Halloween 2. And Dick Warlock was he's a little bow-legged kind of,
Yeah.
but Stacey Nelkin, I thought, did such a great job carrying this film alongside Tom
Yes.
Atkins.
Yes.
And didn't The Fog come out the same no, that was 1980, right? That was 1980. So
Yeah.
he had already, in fact, Jamie Lee Curtis, she's got some voice acting in this one,
Mhm.
right? Because she's the female announcer over the PA in the town of Saint Mira, I guess is where they are.
Right, which is
This a
fictional.
fictional town, but you hear her over the PA.
It's 6 o'clock. Curfew. Curfew.
It was a good casting, and she's been, if you look at her resume before and certainly after this, she's in like every 80s show you could think of, and
Mhm.
yeah, throughout
Nancy
that
Keys,
decade.
on the other hand, her acting career kinda came to an end after, the stuff she did with I think she was an Assault on Precinct
13,
13. That was
14.
another yeah, that was another Carpenter film, and then
Right.
she became like a sculptor.
Yeah, there's other women that are that have gone into other creative endeavors, have
Mhm.
kind of left, whether it be they've never returned back to filmmaking or whatever, and others
Right.
have. I think Ellie Cornell might be among those. So I liked her performance in this as Ellie Grimbridge. I thought
Right.
she did a really. It was just a weird.
It was a weird dynamic. She was way too young for Tom Atkins.
And like they're having sex, and then he says, "How old are you?" Like, okay,
Right.
you've already had sex, and now you're asking her how young. And I'm like, did he take the hypocritical oath as a doctor?
Yeah, he looks like no doctor I've ever seen.
Well, there's a scene. I'm sorry, but I gotta bring up the scene. He's on a payphone, which, look it up, kids. Payphones were a thing back in the day. And he's talking to Nancy, his wife in the film.
Right.
Or his ex-wife, rather. And her name was Linda Chalice. And she's like, when are you going to be home? And, because he's set off on this investigation or whatever.
Right.
And he's with,
Ellie.
he's with Ellie, right?
Right.
And he's on the phone and he's like, I don't know. I forget the name of the hotel because Linda's trying to get, where are you at in case I need to check in. And because he knows he's about to try to score Ellie.
He's got a 6-pack of Schlitz.
He hangs up the phone and he's got a 6-pack of Miller High Life right in the phone booth. It's just so bizarre.
Right.
This, again, a side note, but Stacey Nelkin had a little bit of a relationship with Woody Allen as a young, reportedly when she was 17, allegedly.
Not gonna talk about Woody.
But it was just strange because that's kind of what you got going on here in this film.
Was the other thing that was funny too is she talks about there's a no nipple clause. Because whenever you see a nipple, that person's getting killed. You never see her. There's hints of her.
And Mike hit pause several times to confirm this.
I think of Trading Places and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. If you ever had the VHS, you'd get to those certain spots.
And then the squiggly lines. You'd have to keep hitting pause so it wouldn't squiggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as far as I've been told.
Yes. So then let's go to 88.
So but hold on a second. So you got 1982. We got to wait 6 years.
Yes.
For the aptly titled The Return of Michael Myers, right? So this is huge. Now, if you're going to be cast in this film, there's a lot riding on this, right? Because it's been so long. You're bringing back Myers. There's a lot of anticipation for this film. And of course, the role goes to Ellie Cornell. Now, I want to mention, so Ellie Cornell plays Rachel Carruthers.
Rachel, yes.
Her friend was dating Bill Murray's younger brother, and she befriends Bill Murray as a result, and he was very supportive, and she ends up being married to the mob. And then, eventually it leads into Halloween 4 and, of course, Halloween 5, starring, as Ellie Cornell. What I did not know all these years that I'm sure you unearthed that we have in common with Ellie, right? Do you know this?
Well, she's from Massachusetts, right?
No. She was born in New York, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe
I
don't know.
We went to the same school. She went to Rollins.
I didn't know that.
She got her theater degree from Rollins.
Wow.
And then set off to Atlanta and then New York. And then she ends up,
she was prior to us, probably.
1986, she graduated.
Wow.
1986. So I was like, oh my God, it's in her bio. Well, I never realized that all these years. So I thought that was a pretty fascinating connection that we have with the Halloween franchise. Yeah. They did her dirty in Halloween 5.
Do you know why they made that choice? I don't think she knows why.
I don't.
She was as surprised as we were. She gets killed very early in Halloween 5.
Okay, so on that point, and what I can say to that, and this is from an interview that I listened to with her. She talks about after the fact at a convention, some 25th anniversary, whatever it was, of Halloween 4 or whatever. And I think it was it Irwin Yablans who I think, or producer, and then you got Mustafa Akkad in there, but I think it was Irwin who said to her, like, apologized to her for killing her off, not realizing how that character would eventually resonate with the film franchise fans.
Although she was Rachel, we kind of saw her as Laurie. And Danielle Harris also enters the picture in Halloween 4 as
Jamie Lloyd.
as Jamie Lloyd, and she's the niece of Michael Myers. And for a
Right.
young woman actor, she carries a lot on her shoulders.
Yes. In both 4 and 5.
Both 4 and 5. The most memorable scene, the one in the laundry chute to me.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, I can't imagine being a kid and being, like, stuck in this laundry chute for 6 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Danielle Harris is great in both films, quite frankly. And she's been great in the franchise just period, because she came back, of course, in the Rob Zombie iterations.
Right, which we'll get to, but in 4, she's paired with Ellie, which is a
Right.
good pairing.
It's a great pair. And they spent a lot of time together,
Right.
on and off the set. And I
And
imagine it was a very sisterly kind of relationship that they
definitely.
had.
And
Yeah.
and we got that relationship already, so why kill Ellie Cornell in the first 5 minutes of Halloween 5 and
Yeah. Well,
replace her with Tina?
back to that point though about her death, because she gets killed with this pair of scissors. Like, she gets stabbed with scissors.
Yes.
When Ellie got the script, she read it. She was originally going to get scissors down the throat. And Ellie said, you know what? It's disrespectful. Like, she was kind of like the girl next door type, but
Yes.
she was tough and she was smart and, she was all the things. And
Right.
she just felt like it wasn't a very respectful way for that character to meet her demise. So they changed it. And
Hmm.
that's how you see it in Halloween 5, the
Right.
revenge of Michael Myers. But
Right.
I would have loved to see her carry on. I would have loved to see her and Danielle carry on. It's certainly no shade on Paul Rudd, but we could have done without the Curse of Michael Myers, quite frankly.
And, speaking of Halloween 6,
Mhm.
there's 2 cuts now. There's
Yeah.
a 15 disc box set. And if you buy Halloween 6 on its own, it has no extras. But the one in that box set has a great interview with Danielle Harris
Yeah.
about she was cast as Jamie, who was in
Mhm.
Halloween 6,
Right.
but they battled over like a few $100. It was really stupid.
Yeah. Well, it went to JC Brandy, who plays
Right.
the character.
And people
in the film.
hated her for taking over the role when they were
Yeah.
actually friends in real life. They knew
Right.
each other.
And she did a fine job in that role. It
Yes.
had nothing to do with her, but
But
and that's
the
typical.
producer's cut is much better. It makes more sense. It's still bad. It's still a bad movie,
Yeah.
but it makes a lot more sense.
But like
And
all the Halloweens, and we've said this before, there's something in every one that I like.
yes. Yes.
And so, but back to 4 and 5, because it's such a pivotal time in the franchise, right? This is now
Yes.
you got some numbers for us on 4 and 5.
And I'm very surprised at these numbers.
Mhm.
Halloween 4, 17 million.
Yeah,
Now
that's
you would think Halloween 3 did 14. And everybody was complaining, no Michael Myers, no Michael Myers. We get to 4, it
right.
does a paltry 17 million. And
Mhm.
5 does even worse, 11 million.
Now, is that because we don't have Jamie Lee Curtis? Do you think that the hardcore fans were wanting her back? And
I don't know. I mean, I think the screams were for Michael
yeah,
and the return. You would think the return of Michael Myers. Now, it's not like today where movies like The Joker 2, which I've seen and it's horrible, and that's all I'll say about it.
that's what everybody else says too.
It did 44 million, which way underperformed. This is a $200 million movie.
Mhm.
But the international take is like 78 million. So they're going to eke out a profit because of the international box office.
Mhm, mhm.
Now, back in this time, there was no international box office for Halloween, but still like I said, compared to Halloween 3,
Yeah,
I
it's
would
very
have thought these would have doubled, tripled.
at least in the 20s. Yeah, at least in the 20s. I want to give a shout out to, because there's other supporting cast that were very memorable in 4 and
Mhm.
5. Kathleen Kinmont is not the least of those. And I wanted to, Mike, when we were at, as of this episode, it's now, we realize that Spooky Empire, unfortunately, because of Hurricane Milton, got canceled, and we're
Right.
hoping to get that rescheduled. so that we can appear there and hang out with our horror friends. But last year, you might remember that I got
Yes.
Kathleen Kinmont's autograph here on
They
this
were like
poster
2
from,
tables down from us, weren't they?
yeah, Devaney Pinn, The Black Mass. That movie was showing at the film festival at Spooky Empire. And Kathleen was friends. She's in the film, and they were just 2 tables over from us. And I just got in a conversation with Kathleen, kind of, sort of organically, and
Yeah, I
she's
was
very
sitting at our
sweet.
table. I'm like, "Well, who's that Dan's talking to
Yes, she
there?"
was so nice. She was so nice and generous, and she signed that poster for me. So as did some of the other cast and Devaney, the director. But Kathleen is so good in Halloween 4. She plays the typical, kind of sexy character, and
Right,
he's the jock and the whole thing.
right.
But it was a very memorable performance, I thought. Now, you mentioned Tina from Halloween
Wendy
5.
Wendy Foxworth.
Yeah, now Wendy Kaplan. She was great. So
Mhm.
I had no problem with her, but like you, I
Yeah,
ignored
it
throughout the
felt like an
film.
unnecessary change.
But she was really good.
And then she
Tina, quite a
bonded
bit.
with Danielle Harris, and they had this bond that worked for the
Yeah,
rest of the movie, but
yeah.
she didn't make it out
Mhm.
of the film, so
So jump ahead to, we talked already a little bit about Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween 6, but
yes.
Marianne Hagen
Yeah, Kara Strode.
plays Kara Strode. So she's the star, the female star of this film.
So she's
Um,
like a cousin to Laurie, right?
yes, I believe that was the
Mhm,
relationship. Yeah. And I want to give a shout out to her mother, played by Kim Darby,
mhm.
um, who played Deborah Strode. She's just such a mom character in this.
Right.
She's got like the mom genes and the whole,
Yes.
but she has a great death in this film
Yes.
too. And her husband was a bit of a Tom Atkins type,
Yeah.
way worse. This guy was like an abuser and a
Right.
horrible guy. As goofy as the character was, I really liked her performance in this film. And her death, there's the moment that she's about to die, she looks up and just says, Michael, like she realizes it's him, of course. And I don't know, there was this strength in her performance at that point, that because I think you get the impression overall that she's this very kind of submissive because of who she's married to in the film.
Mhm.
But I thought there was a lot of strength in her performance, and it
Right.
was I would say brief, but she's what, she gets killed off and midway
Right.
through maybe or something. So
And Marianne is like now like Laurie. She's kind of in that same
right.
scenario.
Right, right. And this came another 6 years after Halloween
Right. This
5. It
was
was
1995.
right. So there's another 6-year drought and then we get this Drek.
And
Anyways,
and they ended Halloween 5 with a cliffhanger with this man in black. They don't even address it in
well,
6.
even they've said now, like they didn't know what they were
They didn't know
they
what
didn't
they
know
were
idea.
doing.
They had no idea what they were doing. But yeah, September 29th, 1995, this one comes out. We mentioned JC Brandy already, who played Jamie Lloyd. And again, I thought she was great. It's just the story that was written around her was terrible. It was
And
just
they
terrible.
killed her off way too quick,
Mhm.
which
And this
she's
really
in it longer in the producer's cut.
It's interesting though, because yeah, I didn't realize until now, going back again and kind of perusing all of the films, that this, the Sam Hain, the Festival of Sam Hain, and
Right.
it's referenced in the original with
It
Donald
is.
Pleasant. And then we mentioned that a little bit of that it's mentioned in Season of the Witch too, of course.
Mhm.
And also here, it's a big part of this one.
This is a big part. And there's also we didn't mention with Danielle Harris
Mhm.
is that she has like a psychic connection in 5. She's in the hospital and
Right.
she's kind of mind melding with Michael. And, again, there is supernatural kind of
Sure.
elements.
Sure, and it's a little over the top, but Danielle's performance is just awesome in it.
Yeah.
The way it's like Pacino at the end of Godfather 3, screaming on the steps with no sound coming out of it.
Right.
I mean, she had to be in such a stressful state for most of both of the films.
Yes.
She never really got to be a little girl, kind of
No.
having a good time, and
She
we
was
never.
always on the run,
Yeah, it's
on a
amazing.
roof, in a laundry chute, all sorts of stuff.
Which is probably why, like, reportedly they kept it so loose on the set. She was not treated like a young kid on the set.
There's extras with her,
Lots of
at the
parties.
parties. Yeah. She's acting like she's, 25.
Right, right. So then, Mike,
So
we
then
gotta wait 3 years to get to one of the best films in the franchise
yeah.
in our estimation, which is, of course, H2O, which came
Mhm.
out August 5th, 1998, which would start this trend. The release dates start getting earlier and earlier now, where there's summer releases and not fall releases,
Right.
which I never really liked. But so talk about H2O.
Well, H2O brings Laurie Strode back. And
Yep.
it's 20 years later. She's a dean at this private school. Her son,
Josh Hartnett.
introduced as Josh Hartnett, is going to the school, and she's still living in fear
Mhm.
of Michael, that he's out there somewhere, and he shows up at the school.
Mhm.
But this one, now Halloween 6, I didn't mention, did 15 million. Again,
Wow.
outperforming 4 and 5. But Halloween H2O jumps to a $55 million take. So
There
there's
you go.
obviously a draw. It
Mhm.
was a huge get to
Yeah.
get Jamie Lee Curtis back.
Yeah.
And again, Janet Leigh
great as
plays
Norma.
the secretary,
Yeah, Norma.
and there's all sorts of Norman Bates references, names, and the car.
Well, and her name is Norma Norman.
Exactly.
Michelle Williams is in this as Molly. Jodie Lynn O'Keefe plays Sarah. Nancy Stevens is back in an early sequence as Marion, the nurse from the original.
Yes.
And I wanted to I shouted her out on the H2 episode we did before, but Lisa Gay Hamilton plays a character named Cheryl. We never see her, but it's LL Cool J's girlfriend or wife
On the phone.
And she's just so entertaining to listen to.
Right.
All the performances again were really good.
Michelle Williams, who is now an Academy Award nominated actress,
Yeah.
was she doing Dawson's Creek at this time, or was this before that?
I was watching Party of Five with Lacey Chabert, who would end up in the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise, I think, right?
Right.
And wasn't she in the spoof, the parody?
Maybe.
I can't remember. I might be messing that up.
Yeah.
But so H2O is great. There's a lot of good sequences and good scenes, and Jamie Lee is spectacular, reprising her role again in this film. And I like the story. The plot was
It's
very
believable.
believable. It's very
Yeah.
believable. And again, all the performances by all the actresses in this are great.
And then we have to wait 4 years.
Then we got to wait 4 years. Halloween Resurrection, or Halloween
Brings
8,
back
if you will.
Jamie Lee Curtis. I think that was part
Yes.
of her deal.
Correct.
When she signed for H2O, she had
gotta-
to agree to be in the beginning of Resurrection.
Right. You got to kill me off. But
Right.
I think the big mentions here are Katie Sackhoff, who plays Jen, Bianca Kadlik, who played Sarah, and then Tyra Banks, big name at that time, still is. And this was the whole thing about Dangertainment, they were calling it, with Busta Rhymes. I love the idea. I love the concept, the idea of the film. The execution
wasn't executed
wasn't
great, yeah.
the greatest, but I don't hate the film. I like it like way better than 6.
Yeah.
Better
And-
than Season of the Witch, probably a little
Right.
bit still.
And it was an idea that was ahead of its time, really, with the technology. The technology
was.
really wasn't there yet.
Right.
And they
right.
were doing things that wouldn't really be part of the, grain of society for a few more years.
Yeah.
So you got to give it some props for that. Now, that's the first one
Mhm.
that did 37 million. That's the first one that saw an international, but it was a little.
How much did it do?
It did 37 million
Okay.
after
All right.
H2O's 55. So
Yeah.
that's pretty respectable. People
Good.
were pretty ticked off with Jamie Lee Curtis killing herself very early in the film.
It's a great sequence, though.
It's a great sequence,
Yeah.
but we have to forget that later on.
That's right. There's a little retconning going on.
Right.
And Bianca, who plays Sarah, is, I guess you would say, again, she's the final girl. She's the Laurie Strode, if you will, of
Right.
this, And again, another great performance. very enjoyable to watch again. Then, Mike, we take a very controversial turn,
Right.
and I will continue to stand here and spout great things about Rob Zombie's Halloween, both the first and second one.
I hated
Um,
the second one.
maybe next Halloween Fest we'll do why you should love Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, although I'm not even there yet. So,
Yeah. And
but I
the
liked it every time I
director's
watch it.
cut gets even worse. You would think the director's cut is gonna be better. It's
Well,
not.
it was the experience and what Rob Zombie went through to make the film,
Correct.
you know?
He had a cod breathing down his throat.
Right, right.
Didn't even wanna do 2.
But this was again another drought of 5 years before we would
And a
get a
complete reboot,
complete
a
reboot.
a retelling of the story. So
Correct.
we have a new Laurie Strode.
Yeah, so this brings in Scout Taylor-Compton, who we met at Spooky Empire. It's
Mhm.
very, very, kind and just very down to earth, very,
Yep.
very sweet, and brings back Danielle Harris now as the character of Annie
Right.
Brackett, right? And
Right.
Brad Dourif, of course, in this plays Sheriff Brackett. Scout, as you said, is now Laurie Strode.
Yes.
Sherry Moon Zombie, Rob Zombie's longtime wife, plays Deborah
He's
Myers.
she's in all his films.
Yeah, she is. Hannah Hall plays Judith Myers. We talked about
Mhm.
Judith earlier. And Hannah Hall, some folks might remember her as the young girl in Forrest Gump. Run, Forrest,
Right.
run. That was Hannah
Right.
Hall. Christina Klebe plays Linda D.
Which is the
Wallace.
PJ Souls character.
I was so bummed out that we mentioned Spooky Empire this year is getting rescheduled, hopefully, but Dee Wallace was scheduled to be there, and she
Right.
plays Cynthia Strode in this. I loved her performance in this film. I
Yeah.
thought Dee Wallace was so good.
Yep.
And then I wanted to mention, have you seen this in the extras? Because we didn't watch the discs, but Adrienne Barbeau,
Mhm.
who used to be with John Carpenter,
Right.
filmed
She
the
was in
scene.
the fog.
She was in Rob Zombie's Halloween as an adoption agency secretary, but it got cut out.
Oh, I don't remember
So
that.
it must be in the deleted scenes in this
Probably.
movie. Yeah.
There's like a 4-hour
Mhm.
DVD with extras. I mean,
Yeah.
Zombie taped everything
Yeah.
behind the scenes and in front of the camera. And, there's also a Comic-Con panel
Mhm.
that he did
Mhm.
that's on the extras. So there's a lot of information about these films.
Yeah.
But I liked the first one. I thought the reboot was good.
Mhm.
Scout, I don't know how old she was at the time, but she talk about stressful situations.
Oh my god.
She's screaming the whole time.
Yeah.
She's in the pouring rain. I don't know if that's the end of one. I think it is the end of Zombie's first movie. She's running in the rain. That couldn't have been fun,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
she's very convincing throughout the whole. She does a great job with that.
In her relationship with Danielle Harris as Annie in this, it's just great.
They
Just
have a
really.
podcast together.
Yeah, and Christina too as Linda. Like again, the three, reprising those roles that were made so iconic by the one we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But it was a good retelling. The performances were fantastic, and that would lead into 10. We would get a return of Scout and Danielle in the second one. And but adding to the second one, I wanted to note Octavia Spencer, who we've talked about on the podcast before.
Academy Award winner.
Yes, she was in some of the Nelms brothers, to
Yep.
drop a few names that we like here on the show. She has a great scene in this. She's a nurse, another nurse that gets it. But Tyler Mane, who played Michael Myers,
Monster.
monster of a guy, gentle teddy bear of a guy. Not that I know him personally, but from all accounts and everything I've ever seen of interviews with him, he just seems like a sweetheart of a guy. But
Mhm.
just like 6'9" or whatever, he's huge. Octavia Spencer just has an incredible death in this film. It's so brutal. Like he cut her face essentially in half. It was so
Yeah.
gruesome. Margot Kidder from Superman plays Laurie Strode's psychiatrist in the film.
Wow, I forgot
In the
that.
second one.
In the
And
second one.
she was so good. So good in the film. And she's had her she had her struggles in her lifetime and
Mhm.
with addiction and such, but she just gave a marvelous performance in this film. And then Mary Birdsong, I just wanted to mention because she plays Dr. Loomis's agent. Dr.
Mhm.
Loomis is such a douchebag in this iteration because he's all about trying to get this book sold that he wrote
Right.
about his relationship with Michael Myers.
Played by Malcolm McDowell.
Great.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
he's perfect for the role.
He's perfect for the role.
And then we
So
get to
then we get to
2018
2018, which we'll call it the David Gordon Green, Danny McBride trilogy.
trilogy.
Right. So we get October 19th, 2018, the first one comes out. October 15th, your birthday, 2021, we get the second one. And then October 14th, 2022, we get Halloween Ends. Right. So we got
Yes.
Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and then Halloween Ends. And I kind of wished it did end.
The first film I really liked. The
I did too.
2018 remake with
Yeah.
Jamie Lee. Now, Andy Matichek
Mm-hmm.
takes on, although she's literally the granddaughter of Laurie Strode, she kind of becomes the Laurie Strode character.
Sure.
And I really liked her. The
Right.
first film was a direct sequel to the original, right? They didn't even use the second one.
No, I think
because they didn't want the brother-sister thing to be an issue.
Well, yeah, but so it brings back Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer.
Right.
Right. And then Andy Matichek, as you mentioned, is Allison, Judy Greer's character's daughter. So the granddaughter, as you mentioned.
Correct.
PJ Souls, we get a little bit of PJ Souls. A voice.
She's
teacher.
And again, this is a great symmetry with the first film where Laurie is looking out the window, kind of daydreaming, and the teacher is talking.
Yes.
PJ Souls is the teacher.
And they did the same thing in H2O with Michelle Williams' character.
Yes.
Same thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it was great. And it's interesting because it was Jamie Lee Curtis as the dean, the teacher then. So
yes.
But within this trilogy, so we get that Kyle Richards comes back as Lindsay, right? Who played Lindsay. Nancy Stevens is back as Marion.
They brought
Marion
back
Chambers.
Anyone who was, well, I'm really talking about Halloween Kills. They brought back anyone that was still living in the universe.
It was like a greatest hits. It was kind of like a greatest hits.
It's like, okay, step up to the plate, we're going to kill you. Step up to the plate, we're going to kill. It was stupid. Halloween Kills, as good as Halloween 2018, and that's the only way I can refer to it. As good as I like that, I love the way they made Donald Pleasance come back from the dead.
That
I
was
hope
incredible.
his family was on board with that.
That was amazing. Yeah.
But as good as that first one was, the next two are just garbage.
Isn't the first one, am I confusing the first and the second now, where the doctor character who was just atrocious had no, like he becomes
all of a sudden he's
copycat,
obsessed with Michael and
wasn't that the first one?
I thought it was
the only
second.
thing that was wrong with the first one, I think, was his character.
Yeah, and they killed a kid in that one, right? That was like taboo. You don't kill a kid. Now Terrifier, I guess, has upped that ante a bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the violence against children is not, that's not uncommon to the franchise, really.
No. But
so now what's coming next, Mike? Now we've got this, as of this recording, not a lot more details, but this streaming series that we're supposed to be getting, right? That's
hoping we were going to get it this year, but
it's going to lead into a series of films. Is that the idea?
I think that's the take. I honestly think when they did Halloween Ends, in John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis's mind, this was it. Although Akkad, the dad, always, had it in the contract, you can't kill Michael, he doesn't die. And they kill him in Ends in a way that there's no way he's coming back from that.
Right.
So how they reintroduce him, I don't know. But
because
I'd rather see another movie than a TV series.
I don't know. I don't know. Well, There's been talk, of course. In fact, I was listening to a recent interview with Danielle Harris. Well, an interview from a few years back, actually. It was like 2019, actually, I think. And by the way, I didn't know she had a part in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Did you know that?
I think I did at the time when it came out. I haven't watched it in a while, but yeah, I remember her in it.
Yeah, and I guess she's friends with Quentin Tarantino. But she had made some comment somewhere along the way about, wouldn't it be great to bring back Jamie, and that led to this whole thing of like, oh, she's vying to be in the film and this that,
That's
which
fine.
wasn't the case. But I think there's a lot of fans like us of the franchise that would actually love to see that. I don't care how she comes back.
Right. And
Write
it
her
would
in
have to be
somehow.
it would have to be out of canon because she gets killed very quickly in 6.
Right.
Which is
exactly.
one of the reasons the producers wouldn't pay her
Mhm.
is because, well, you get killed off, you're not significant. They should have made that a more significant role, and she should have been in it.
I mean, they could reboot the whole thing as far as I'm concerned, just completely start over. I would have no
Which
problem with that.
that's what I wonder if we really don't know. I mean, there's a lot of fake trailers and made up
Mhm.
stuff out there.
Right.
Don't believe any of it because
No.
none of it's pen to paper yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing for me in all of this, revisiting it to kind of spotlight the women in the franchise, is that Ellie Cornell graduated from Rollins in 1986. That was like, what? I had no idea. That was
Go
crazy.
Tars.
But there's just it's again, it's nice to go back and
And for me, when I
really
think of
recognize that
Halloween,
they are at the forefront of this franchise.
yeah, Laurie,
Do you when you think of them? Well, of course you think of Laurie Strode, you think of Jamie Lee
right.
Curtis, of course, always. But do you ever go, oh, that male character in the Halloween like,
Well,
of course, aside from Michael Myers
and Donald Pleasance.
with
You
Loomis,
know,
right?
yeah,
Right.
Loomis, aside from them, it's always about
Right.
Andy
That's a given.
Matichak, Scout Taylor
Taylor
Compton,
Compton, right?
Danielle
Harris,
Harris.
Ellie
Those are the
Cornell,
characters that stick out for me with Halloween,
mhm,
all the
Stacey
women.
Nelkin, Season of the
Yeah,
Witch.
yep,
And again, that's why I think this kind of just came into our brain was, it seems like a obvious thing to do. This
yeah,
franchise, we love the franchise, but the fact that there's so many standout performances by so many different women
right,
over the years,
yep.
that continue to carry on the lore and the legacy. So, anything else to say, Mike? Just in general, Queens of Scream, the women of Halloween.
For me, it's, the lead women characters carry this franchise as much as it's about Michael Myers and
Mhm.
Dr. Loomis. If it wasn't for the female leads from Jamie Lee to Andy, we wouldn't
Mhm.
have a franchise.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes next. I mean, whatever it is, I'll be there. And as long as Michael Myers is still kind of the central character, as far as you know that side of the coin goes. But it'd be interesting to see, like, are they just Halloween ends like you said? He was tossed in a meat grinder essentially.
I
So,
know.
but do we see Andy Matichak come back? Do we see all of
I
these?
don't think so. I think they're gonna,
Yeah,
David
that
Gordon Green, that was his trilogy and it's done. And now it's gonna be passed on to someone else.
there you go, folks. It's a tribute episode.
To
Queens
the
of
women
Scream,
of Halloween.
the women of Halloween. And Mike, that's a wrap on Halloweenfest 2024.
Can't believe it.
That's going to do it for another episode of the Your Brother Podcast. Been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith. And we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.